Hi, I'm Phedon Papamichael. I'm the cinematographer of A Complete Unknown, and this is the Go Creative Show.
Hey everyone, this is Ben Consoli, and you are watching the Go Creative Show, a podcast for filmmakers. Today I've got Phedon Papamichael, the cinematographer for A Complete Unknown. Phedon, nice to see you, and welcome back to the Go Creative Show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Last time we had you was for Ford vs. Ferrari, and this movie, A Complete Unknown, couldn't be more different, but I think the conversation is good. Well, see, it's interesting to see. I see a little bit of like, oh, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I kind of like that because, when you're doing a project like this, you are in a 1960s aesthetic. You're telling a story of Bob Dylan. So there's a lot going on there. And I'd like to kind of hear from you what your initial first vision for the visual style of Complete Unknown was. And also, how did it kind of change and evolve during production?
Well, since you mentioned it's different, I mean, this is my seventh feature with James Mangold. Let's call him Jim. Um, and ironically, I mean, it seems like we've been doing 60s period, this exact period. Even in Indiana Jones, it's exactly the same years.
You love
Uh,
the 60s.
Love the 60s. Of course, we've done a musical film before. We did the biopic Walk the Line. But when we first talked about Dylan, and this goes way back because it first found itself 5 years ago, even before COVID, that we were discussing this, and Timothy had very early on agreed at Toronto. Actually, I think they met at the premiere when we had Ford vs. Ferrari at the Toronto Film Festival to play this. I was always saying to Jim, it'd be nice to find a different texture for this film. I wanted a little bit more texture. I was looking at a lot of still photography from the era, mostly street photographers like William Eggleston, and there's a lot of great color imagery from the 60s in New York. Ernst Haas and of course Saul Leiter, and that was something that was really inspiring to me, seeing that Kodachrome look, let's say, the contrast, and the primary colors, the reds and the blues, but the shadows and the textures. So I really didn't want a sleek, refined, lit Hollywood feel for this. I wanted it to, now I'm not saying as extreme as have it feel like a documentary, although I always bring these things up with Jim, just throwing it out there. Let's go rougher, handheld, grainy. Uh, uh,
Are
I
you usually the one that pushes in that direction with James to like
Well, no,
make it
because
rougher, make
when
it
we
grainier?
initially talk about it, we were always open to it. I mean, we always explore it. I explore. I bring up different aspect ratios. I mean, ultimately, we are huge fans, both of us, Jim and I, of the anamorphic lensing and the widescreen aspect ratio. It's just something that we discovered. It really works well for our sense of composition, is it allows us to do these intimate close-ups, but not isolate the character. I think taking an even more naturalistic approach to lighting helps it because it just makes it look real. I really wanted to create a real feeling world and really capture um, the spirit of a time, and not have it look, lit and backlit, and so the clubs are really dingy, and there's also an arc to his the visual story, because he comes, and we intentionally started in the winter. We were rushing to start so we can get a different look, sort of a gritty gray muted tones, the browns, uh, the West Village, which was shot mostly in Hoboken in New Jersey. The movie, for production reasons, had to shoot exclusively in Jersey, with the exception of the Chelsea Hotel exterior and the courthouse exterior that we did in New York. That was a one-day shoot in Manhattan, but the rest was all in Jersey. But we created the village, and we have him first arrive. He gets let out by the Holland Tunnel and walks basically through the city, discovers McDougal Street, goes to a coffee shop, asks where he can find the hospital where Woody Guthrie is. I don't know how much I should reveal of the actual story, but he comes to New York because he reads in a newspaper article that Woody is sick. He wants to play him a song. It's his big influence on him, Woody Guthrie, and a big idol.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's how our journey begins of him coming to New York, and then he discovers some of his heroes, and they embrace him pretty quickly because they realize he's a special person. And he starts playing the small clubs in the village, and like a gaslight, and so it starts with this drabber, muted tones. He's in rags. He has his little cap, his guitar case, his little backpack, and so visually, it's more muted. And then also the clubs, they have very dim little stage light. And I'm using all period lighting, period practicals. So inherently, the visual story takes on a development as he transitions from Robert Zimmerman to Bob Dylan, because he transforms himself also. He's discovering things. He's discovering the beat of the city. It's not just folk music. I mean, it's so many things are going on. Politically, of course. Cuban Missile Crisis, assassination of JFK, jazz. You have an incredible scene developing in many ways culturally. The hippies. So he as he becomes Bob Dylan and figures out who he is and who he doesn't want to be. He also changes physically. He's gets a motorcycle. He's Ray-Bans. His hair grows out. He's got orange shirts, polka dot shirts. So also the venues that he plays become bigger, and therefore the lighting, which is again period correct, natural light in a way, natural being period stage lighting, but the venues become bigger, so the light becomes stronger, the contrast becomes harsher, and it kind of, without me having to push it, stylistically, it takes on this, visual, natural curve where, it also becomes visually more expressive and yeah, more
Yeah, I mean,
more
the film
stimulating.
exactly. And the film has such an evolution. It follows Dylan's life. There's so much going on, like you said. And the film is largely about how his music changed and how he wanted his music to change, despite pushback. And I think that one of the things I wanted to know from you is from the cinematography of it, what were some of the ways that the cinematography evolved throughout the 2.5 hours or so of the film to follow the changes that he made? Like, were you changing the way that you approached the focal lengths or the camera motion or anything to help support the changes going on in his life?
Well, that's what I'm trying to explain, is that it sort of naturally, the photography naturally takes on a different nature, meaning as his character changes, it demands, the energy, even the editorial pacing increases. It's because his life becomes more, he comes in from this observant, quiet young man, and it becomes, within a few years, in an incredible short period of time, sort of this superstar. And he is, dealing with the effect of it being recognized. I mean, I don't think he quite realized how quickly that would happen. And he's also seeing a lot of other influences in music, and he travels to, we don't show that in the movie, but he goes to London. He meets the Beatles. He becomes pen pals with Johnny Cash. He observes other performers. He sees they have a band. He sees that he just kind of wants to be, he doesn't want to be locked into this folk scene. He wants to be, he wants to have fun. He wants to be a rock and roller. He wants a guitarist. He wants a drummer, and so um, what we do is, yeah, we cover that and the energy as he discovers it as well. We discover him and his eyes and through his performance, and the camera uh, just follows. That's what we do as filmmakers. We capture sort of a story, so it takes on this nature of his energy being at a much higher level. Of course, the climax being Newport and him actually plugging in and you know, upsetting a lot of people or a lot of people actually liking it. It's it's not that like everybody hated what he was doing. Some people were like really embracing it. So but of course those performances have a more active camera, have this great Steadicam operator and a camera operator Scott Sakamoto, who had also done Maestro and The Star Is Born, and we're all very fluid and instinctive about following Timmy's energy on stage, and we play these songs through. It's not like we set up shots and design. Okay, we're going to do a close up here, then we're going to go over his back and show the audience. This is something for performance reasons, and also discovering. Truly was a discovery for us. Also, just because we had a lot of time because of the COVID delay, and then we also had started prep in 23, in the summer of 23. Then we dealt with the writer strike. Then we stopped again and came back in the spring of 24. So just recently, but that gave everyone, Timmy especially, more time to become really great practicing these songs and becoming quite an accomplished guitarist, doing piano, harmonica, and his singing, and not just Timmy, but Ed and Monica, and who plays John Baez. I mean, everyone got extra time, and so did all the departments, like art department, myself, although we shut down and we weren't prepping, but you sit on this material because we had scouted all the locations in 23 in the summer, so I had seen all the locations. You're able to have everything in your head and create. Um, it's that sort of passive prep where you kind of just think about the movie a lot, and so when by the time we came around and did Newport, I mean, he was so good. We played the songs through without cutting. I think sometimes two, three songs back to back, and
Wow.
everyone is just instructed, just go with it, and Scott and
How
Jim.
many cameras were you running during the performance scenes?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, of course, when we do with wide shots and we have to show the audience, which we are bringing in the extras, and we have limited time with them, and we don't have that many, we do cover with three cameras with the max, where we really capture the wider shots. That helps us show the extras uh, to maximize the use of that. But once we get those, and we don't spend a lot of time on those, those are not really the performance shots. Then we go on stage, because that's something we also learn on Walk the Line and on Ford vs. Ferrari, and that's something Jim is very aware of. It's like we get into that space physically, like I said earlier, with wider lensing. We don't just swing a lens and go, okay, let's do the close-ups and objective audience POVs. It's like we want to live on that space with him and feel the energy, and so much is going on in Timmy's face. We're like under 2 feet away from him with this camera, and then it becomes single camera. To answer your question, it's Scott Sakamoto, and he's frontal three-quarter. We rotate around. We reveal the audience that we have left. We do full 360s, so he goes from raking left side to all the way across to raking right side. He even crosses front, and I'm constantly shifting lights with I have a little dimmer, a wireless dimmer, where I'm adjusting the keys. It's everyone is on the fly, like live mixing, and he's playing the song through, and he's singing live. So it's really like covering a live concert. It's not like,
Yeah.
okay, here are our setups for this performance. It's like cover it's this, cover, and then we do two, three takes, but we don't do that many takes because he's bringing it. He's bringing it. He's feeding off the audience. Although, we don't have 10,000 people, but 150, 200 people of extras, they're all reacting like they're at a real concert. At that point, it becomes not really a movie set. It's like it becomes a true live performance, and the performers feed off of that the same way a rock star would feed off of it. And then Timmy, because his character, he wants to be a rock star. I mean, he wants to play rock and roll. He wants to, so he's loving it, and it's everyone feeds off of it. Every crew member, they just sense it. That's a beauty when you make a movie like this. I love making movies about a music performer or an artist, because everyone kind of feeds off of their energy. It's very inspiring. And then Timmy and Monica and Ed, like Pete Seeger, we were just blown away. We're just sitting by the monitors, like tapping our feet and adjusting lights. It really creates. It's lovely.
I
But
love that. Now,
to go back to creating the world, just the authenticity of it all, and the texture. So let me just jump back. I'm sorry.
no, no, it's fine.
Texture of the movie. So really wanted to create that without it feeling too artificial and lit. So I had discovered recently, prior to the shoot, a new camera. It's a Sony Venice 2, which I tested, and I realized I can really rate that camera at a very high ASA.
Well, that's something I wanted to talk to you about because,
Yeah.
we always let people know who's going to be our next guest on the show. People submit their questions, and the question I got more than anything, and I think it couldn't be asked better than this. Ryan Dean _ DP on Instagram wants to know, and I think it's phrased perfectly. Did you ever in a million years think you'd be shooting a film at 12,800 ISO?
I know.
so give us.
1200, which most people go, oh, 1200. I've shot digital. I mean, I've shot over 50 films, of which 40 have been on film. So it's not like, I'm a big digital camera fan, but I did, and I always create in my DI. I'm always looking for film texture, film look. I mean, it's something, we like, and especially in this case. But And I've shot, Nebraska, which looks like film. I mean, Haskell Wexler called me, goes, "What film stock did you use on that?" That I was Alexa Mini. So, but I've never been able, whether on film or with his earlier digital cameras, to really explore that low light capability. And when I discovered, actually was on a Apple commercial, I had to use an FX3, which is the small Sony, but also can be rated native at 12,800. I go, wow, this looks pretty amazing. It looks clean. I mean, at least on my monitor here on set. So for this movie, um, I tested extensively with colorists. The Sony at, you can rate it native at 3,200, but I pushed it 6,400, 12,800. I wanted to see it on a big screen, which we did with my LUT applied, my lookup table, the colors that I kind of based on the Kodachrome still photographers, Eggleston and Haas and Leitner that I mentioned. The assignment for the colorists was I was testing different colorists as well, um, and ended up with David Cole at Photochem, uh, and I was looking at it on a big screen. And I go, this is incredible. Like, I really don't see a noise problem, a digital noise problem,
It's
and
amazing.
especially with the process that I was intending to do, which typically you emulate film through live grain or various DI tools. But being Photochem and them actually having a lab, they offered up this thing that they call Shift AI, which is shift to actually Kodak negative, in this case 5203, which is a 50 daylight stock. So you area laser out after you do all your color correction. NVIDIA with your windows and secondaries, and all the tools that are available. You actually area laser out to a negative, and it's called AI for analog intermediate. So you're actually going to Kodak negative. You pick up all the actual qualities that film gives you, which also it interprets color different. There's some changes that happen. Of course, the grain, but not just the grain. This everything that you can emulate with other tools. You're actually getting the real thing. So and then you bring it back in, you scan it back in, and then you make your DCP from that. So it's
Yeah, I
actually
want to make sure people understand because it is a little confusing and there's multiple steps, but the process is called Shift AI, and I want to make
and,
sure I'm
and
understanding it right.
analog artificial intelligence. It's analog.
Yeah, exactly. So you do all your color grading, so you get it all done first, you get it the way you want, and then you send out a scan to an actual Kodak negative to then bring it back in digitally. So this sounds like it's the last step in the chain.
This is the last step in the chain. Now, during production, we're emulating it because I want us on set. When I light, I want to be lighting off a lot. I always try to create a look that is as closest to how we're gonna, want the final product to be. That's very important also for the director. I mean, Jim is a still photographer himself. He color corrects his own stills. He's very sensitive towards the contrast and the saturation that we're dealing with on set because he lights with me. We're kind of co-authors in it. He's very involved, not just compositions, but really like I mean, this we really collaborate on that. And I think it's a great interaction we have. I mean, they have very much the same sensibilities and same tastes, so it makes it a very good interaction. But so you
And you've
work
worked together a lot, and
and
you
we work
direct
a
and you
lot.
direct on your own. You direct your own films.
I direct on my own, and he knows that, and he's one director that's not intimidated. He realizes that it gives advantages to a DP if he understands editorial. You're not just designing beautiful shots. We're always like, where is this shot going to function? Where is the sweet spot of the shot? Where does it sit in the scene? Should we really be in this move here? No, we're not going to be on this. So having sat through editing features, you learn a lot. I think it's actually one of the biggest lessons I ever had as a cinematographer was having to cut my shots, kill your babies, and you
Yeah.
start thinking really about what is the sweet spot of each scene, what is the purpose of a scene, how do we tell it most uh, efficiently, and how do we capture the emotional story narrative of each shot, really. It's because so anyway, Jim is also very, very obviously very good in cutting and seeing things in his head. So we never really have a hard time coming up with shots or discussing after blocking how we're going to resolve the scene. We're kind of in autopilot, and luckily we're instinctively very much on the same page. But to go back to the look, so I make sure the look exists on set, and then it also goes to editorial because another thing that happens, as many DPs know, when the director lives with the material for months and months in the editing room, it takes on that becomes their own reality. So even if something in dailies is too blue or too green, and it's because it wasn't, it was transferred wrong, they once you correct it and take it out in the DI, they go, well, but that scene didn't look like that. I go, yeah, it was green and it was wrong. Oh, but I kind of like it. So
Yeah.
I mean, even Spielberg, I'm not talking about like, I mean, Janusz Kaminski would go in and to Technicolor retime all the dailies in the morning at 5 a.m., his film dailies. I go, Janusz, why do you do
Wow.
that? You get up so early and uh, it's just daily. He goes, no, because Steven gets used to it and he likes it. He likes when it's all blue and I don't like it, And so you have to realize no matter how experienced and on what level the filmmaker is, and it's happened to me, even with things I shot and directed, that I said the same thing to my colors. That's not how it looked in dailies. I mean, it's just happened. So, it's very important to us that we have a look the way we, as close as we can, without going through the final DI process, to look as much as the final film wants to look. I make sure all the monitors are calibrated that editorial has. And so when Jim comes into the I mean, he's dealing with a different color space, P3 versus, you know, um,
But there's no surprises. He's familiar with what
yeah,
he's
it's
seeing.
less traumatizing when we, you know, fix the final thing the way we want it.
I love that
But
you're calling it
he was very
traumatizing.
happy. He was very happy with this. So, just to wrap it up in terms of the grain of the film out, he really loved the result of that. And it's really, you know, it really reminded me of the movies that I was going for. I mean, not necessarily 60s movies, but like French Connection and Clute and The Conversation, Gordon Willis's work on these movies shot in New York in terms of that's how I remember film looked like when shot on anamorphic with 35 millimeter. And I had done, of course, some in my career, like Million Dollar Hotel, this Wim Wenders movie with Mel Gibson and um, I had just recently rewatched it. It got remastered by Vim, and that was 800 ASA Kodak. I pushed it to 1,000 back then. I shot C series Panavision anamorphics, and I was looking at I go, this has great texture. I can see it, and this is what I want these larger format digital cameras to look like. Also, why does it look different? And partially is because the sensor is so big now, you're getting very shallow depth of field. So to loop back to why I was exploring with 12,800 ASA,
Yeah.
it's like, and I said to Jim, because we had often in the past talked about it'd be nice to shoot deeper stops, like have deep focus shots, because we're using wide lensing anyway, and to help our whole effort of not having the widescreen anamorphic 2:3.9 aspect ratio, but still keeping the world around him alive, which was very important for me on this one. The textures of the brownstones and the firescapes and the period cars, and even on night exteriors when he's walking down the street in the village, I didn't want to lose that world that we created with art department. They dressed all of the clubs, the storefronts. It's so much work, detail, all of the signage went into it. I didn't want it to be this, beautiful bouquet of out of focus lights. I really wanted to. So,
And
and
that
with
12,800 ISO
those
allows you
movies
to do that.
had, and Million Dollar Hotel had, and I go, if I go 12,800 ASA, I can shoot these night exteriors at 811 stop.
Mm.
And the noise is not an issue, especially going to film whatever digital noise some nerdy person might perceive, which I really didn't see any. And even David Cole, who had done this process before on Batman with Greg Fraser and on Dune 2, I mean, they're really the ones at Photochem that developed this Shift AI. He goes, even if it was some noise, we could degrain it before we go to film. But like we never had to. And the grain, the natural film grain that you pick up, especially with this 5203 stock, is more than covers up whatever, uh, noise, digital noise you would perceive. Anyway, it was really worked out. I mean, it all sounds complicated and
Well, I think people will understand
theoretical,
because
but ultimately, it's really, I think, taking advantage of the technology where it allows me not to set up huge lights, condors, backlights to build up a stop. I can have him walk down the street using the interactive light that he's picking from car headlights, street poles, spill out of shops, and even exposure in the sky, the city sky, the ambience that bounces off the clouds, like those read. And I'm working at an 811 stop, 11 stop on night exteriors. And the
amazing.
only thing I do to light his face is I have two electricians left and right of Scott Sakamoto on Steadicam tracking back with him. And I'm, if necessary, bringing up a little highlight, a little fill, a little interactive light, like if he walks past a red neon sign, like I have one And those I use those Roscoe dash lights that are little brick lights, little LED brick lights, and they have
Yeah.
this silicone dome on it, a diffusion dome. So even if I catch him in his Ray-Bans, because he's mostly even at night wearing his Ray-Bans, they don't look like movie lights. It makes everything so, because this is a location picture. It's like 90% on location, no, very little VFX, of course, some crowd uh, enhancement and some cleanups of non-period things we couldn't control, like a FedEx truck driving through the shot.
There's
uh,
always something.
there's always something, but basically it's not a VFX show, and it's all location. It's like the only sets we had built was Bob's apartment where he lives with Susie or Sylvie in our case, and some hotel room interiors, the Chelsea Hotel interior, which look completely different in the 60s, and the Viking Hotel. But the rest is all locations. Even some of the all other small apartments where he goes visits Sylvie. It's like tiny little brownstones. You walk, carry the gear up. So it's great to be able to work at that speed and take advantage of the newest technology in terms of light, LED lights, wireless. You don't have to necessarily bring generator. You can plug in, or you're battery powered. I can, don't have to run cable down 3 blocks of streets, and also for the actors, they would come to set, and even Jim was like, "Are we lit? Are we ready? I don't see any." I go, "No, we're good."
Well, probably to your eye, it probably looked incredibly dark, especially if you're doing the
Incredibly dark.
12,800.
No, I mean, I'd be on the monitor looking at it, and I go, "This looks great." And I walk to set, and be like, "What's going on here? It's like it's pitch black here," and the actors were confused. Nobody's used to working at these levels. And then, like the tiniest source, like it's actually when you work at that stop, and I mean those sensitivity levels, it's all about controlling light and taking light away. So it's mostly not adding light. It's put black here, make this hang duvetine here, negative fills, floppies, on day exteriors. You shape really by taking light away. I mean, this is not a new technique, but I mean, Chivo and all these people have been doing it for a long time. I mean, it's just huge blacks and really controlling the ambience and shaping people that way. But
Negative
also
fill
uh,
everywhere.
negative fill everywhere, but also like all the street lights that we couldn't control because often we couldn't get access to them. It's all about just getting up there and black wrapping them or trying to shut them off somewhere, just really going around and turning a lot of things off.
So in
Yeah.
scenes like that, the night exteriors where he's walking, walking down the streets of the village, uh, you're at the 12,800 ISO. So every single light is so impactful and so potent. You were saying, did I hear you say that you had gaffers literally hand holding lights and just kind of walking with him
Yeah.
as you moved? And then you were controlling it. Did you have like a little dimmer board you were controlling with?
Yeah. So, my setup, it's something I discovered actually on indie and from my gaffer David Sinfield, uh, even way before that on Huntsman, they gave me this little wireless dimmer. It's 12 channel. It's not like an iPad, which I can't really deal with sliders. It's
Yeah.
physical. It looks like old school analog mixer, but it's wireless. It's called DMX-IT, and it's become my new favorite tool because I can sit by the monitor, set levels, have the main dimmer board operator close enough to me where I can tell him, give me the Astera tube, the Titan tube on channel one, make it 2400 Kelvin. Give me the dash light, the Roscoe dash light, on channel six, and make it 4000 Kelvin. I can set all the color temperatures, and then I control. So I have him program. He can feed me any lights on a big stage. I can go give me all the vortexes on the left side of the airplane on channel one, all the 360 area sky panels, give them to me on channel four, and the ones above on channel six, and and then I can walk out onto set and check it all, check the levels. In this case, much simpler. I literally have assigned my two electricians that follow the actor with the Steadicam, and that's just kind of standing by. It doesn't necessarily, like, often we do a take and they look at me really concerned. They go, "It wasn't on in this take. It's did you lose connection?" I'm like, "No, no, it's okay. I didn't use it. I didn't bring it up." Like, I'll bring him up, and we even have to set the levels because I'm bringing him up like 5%, 10%. Can you stretch a band so I can actually move my slider?
It's
So
in,
you set the max of the light at like 30%, so I can actually have some travel on the slider. Um, but I'm just watching the monitor during the take, just like a sound mixer would be adjusting between the booms. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't need it." And then maybe he stops, he looks. I can also shift keys. So if he's looking and is about to walk off to the left, I can have a little key light. They're in position, and I use them as needed. When he actually turns, goes the other way, I can get rid of that light. I fade it out, and as he walks the other direction, I bring in the key from the other side. So it's very organic, fluid, adjusting lights. It makes it a lot of fun. It also makes my day by go faster, since I don't get to operate that much anymore.
do you miss it? Do you miss operating?
Oh, very much. But
Why don't
it's
you do it? I mean, I'm sure no one will
well, because
complain
I'm
if you just
camera
decide,
guy.
hey, I want to operate.
I jump onto another camera sometimes, but also when you have multiple cameras, which really didn't have much in this case, we had Scott Sakamoto. You don't jump on the camera when you have Scott Sakamoto.
Exactly. It's covered.
Also, when we do have multiple cameras, I do want to stay in control of overseeing, what everyone is doing. I don't want to be stuck on some C camera doing a low angle foot shot or something. I want to,
Yeah.
because I also communicate to all the operators off headsets. That's another thing I do. And I'm also, my setup is my DIT is always next to the director's uh, video village. I mean, we created always where I'm next to Jim, next to Stella, our script supervisor, so I can always hear what they're saying. We can always make eye contact. I don't isolate myself in the tent. I think that's a very big, important thing for DPs to
Why is
realize.
that?
Well, because it's all about communication. It's all about the little looks, even during the take, a little glance over. I see Jim's reaction. I see him smiling. I see him going like confused. I can walk over. I can say, "This is like, the shot's not playing right here," or it's just very important. Uh, Ideally, like with Alexander Payne, uh, and it's I operate, and then the director is sitting next to you on an Apple box, and the actors are right there, and you create this little magic triangle of that's actually where the movie's happening. It's like the performer, the focus puller, the boom man, the operator, and the director. And then when you cut, the actor can look up, and he's not hearing from some speaker. All right, that was great. Let's go again. He can actually make eye contact. That's why a lot of these actors really have strong relationships with the cameraman. I mean, operators in our case in America, because it's the first human. They can see, they can give him a little gesture, a little wink, a little thumbs up, or a little like looking at his mark and see. And there's that communication is so important, and also actors feel, good when the humans actually watching, and it's not like this remote, already in this world when the sets aren't really there, and then the director isn't there. But Jim is very voicious, and our communication is very much, and I'm communicating to the operator, and we're so much in sync about the shot where I will say something, let's say to the operator, I'll say, push in a little bit and pan just left. And Jim doesn't know I'm saying this to him because I don't have him close enough where he can hear everything I say because I don't want to distract him, but I'm close enough to, if I want to communicate to him, I can say something. And then he'll literally at the same time be go, tell him to push in a little bit and pan left. Like give him exactly the same direction that I had just said. So it's good. I mean, we have very similar taste in terms of compositions also. But and then, so I'm in the middle. I have the director's monitors there, and then I'm also the new addition to this system is I have my main dimmer board operator. I don't want him somewhere really far away because I'm constantly asking him to shift. Like I go make this walking light that we're walking with, add some green to it, or like I'm adjusting the colors. He can even give that to me on sliders. but it gets a little bit much. And also, John Alcantara, my gaffer, we have two of these DMXs. So basically, we're controlling 12 and 12, 24 channels of adjustable lights, which sometimes, like on Daddio, which is all in the car with Sean Penn and Dakota Johnson, it's all like we're both of us like just going crazy, but I mean, and here on the concerts too, because the camera is rotating, it's not just in one position. I'm constantly adjusting the key and shifting it and making it not noticeable that the lights are constantly changing.
I love how alive it is. I mean, it's really feels like it's very musical in the way that you're doing it. You even mentioned a few moments ago that it's similar to like a sound tech using a board, but it feels like the whole process and the way that you work is very musical. It's very alive. It's very in the moment, which is something that doesn't often happen or doesn't all the time happen in filmmaking, where it's, you think of it as you do it once, you do it again, take two, move the camera, do that.
Oh
It
yeah.
gets stale. It seems like with the way you're approaching it, it feels very fresh.
And every take is different, with Timmy and with Joaquin back then. I mean, you just never really know. It's not like here, Timmy, stand on your mark by the mic. He'll turn away, he'll face away, he'll walk towards the drummer, he'll come back in. We all have to be reactive, and that's what gives it that natural energy, and the performers, of course, love it. But that's when you shoot music films, that's what you get, and that's why they're so fun to do, because you have to be reactive, and they're inspiring. Like these performers are inspiring. We I get all my inspiration for lighting. How moody should I make? Based on the performance, based on how like Timmy would come in, and not just the concert scenes, but like I remember when we would bring him into his apartment that he lived in with Sylvie, how he would, we go, okay, it's this scene, and then, and he would just walk around, take one, he would sit in the couch, then, I mean, not take, rehearsal one, he would like sit and then walk over to the window. The next time he would go over his bed and lay in the bed and grab a guitar. And he's also discovering it, and we're discovering him discovering it, and then no one's setting shots and marks at this point. Like Scott Sakamoto, Jim, Stella, the scripter, we're looking at it, and he goes, I think I'm gonna just play it over here. Like, of course, he picked like leaning in the dark corner.
Yeah.
I go, okay. And Jim goes, is that okay for you? I go, yeah. I mean, it's like, we're gonna like, it's happened to us a few times where he picked like, we had an idea like at the Irish bar. He's gonna sit at the bar, but then he came in and he goes, I wouldn't really be in the middle of the place. I'm famous now. I would go sit in that dark corner there. I go, oh, we didn't really pre-light that, but yeah, sure, let's do it. I mean, it makes sense. I
It
mean, you
does.
realize when you watch him, it makes sense. He's right. You have to respect his instincts about his character, and I mean, he's given it a lot of thought. And when you have a really good actor, you wanna let them show you things, and so everyone was discovering things, and then that's how we even shot the scenes in the apartment. Like, okay, I guess they'll be sitting on the bed. She's making coffee over there. She goes over. I mean, it's very nice. And then the way I approach lighting, it's not shot specific. The space is basically lit, and that again with the camera and the way I can, just have a few 5Ks pushing through the window, and all the fill light is just passive bounce off the sheets, off the floor. It looks very natural, and the actors can roam around and go anywhere they want.
Yeah, it has such an incredible natural look, and the film is just awesome. We've got a question here from Eric Samuels 2 on Instagram. If you could do another biopic of somebody, anybody, who would you like to do and why?
Well, I grew up a big Dylan fan actually, so that worked out great. But I'm also a
So
big
that one you
Leonard
can check
Cohen.
off the list.
Yeah, yeah, that one I've done. Cash also. I feel so lucky. I did like two of my favorite. But I do love Leonard Cohen. And ironically,
That'd be a great
I'm
one.
Greek, and I was actually born in Greece and conceived on this island, Hydra, which is where Leonard Cohen spent a big portion of his life. And I used, as a kid, I would run into him at the open air summer movie theater or at the post office, and I love his music. And I know they've done like a Canadian TV show, but I would love to shoot on that Greek island in Hydra. It's called a Leonard Cohen movie. Um,
I'm sure your crew would like that too.
a lot of people would like that, and actually, I've been
Yes.
approached about it. There's some people talking about making that movie, but that would be lovely because again, it's '60s, and my mom and dad, they met on a movie shoot in '61
No
with
way.
Anthony Perkins and called Phedra on that island, and that's where I was conceived. So uh, it was. It would be nice to '60s in Greece was incredible. Also visually, it was very rough and textured and poor, and then you had this poet living there and writing these songs, and I just yeah. Anyway,
Well, in our last couple minutes, I have a question for you. And you're probably the perfect person to ask because you clearly embrace new technologies. You shot this whole film in Venice too at the 12,800 ISO. So really using new technologies. What are your thoughts on AI in filmmaking? Is it something that worries you? Have you thought much about it? Do you think it could be an interesting tool? What do you think? We're at the
yeah. Look,
beginnings.
look, it doesn't worry me because I feel like I've just made it through in time, and there will be filmmakers, including myself and the directors I'm gonna choose to work with, where we're gonna keep making movies the way movies should be made with real actors and
It's amazing it even has to be said, but it does.
so. But I must say, I am worried for the future generations. My son, who's 17, he's very much interested in filmmaking. He started shooting shorts and documentaries, and I go, "Don't become a DP." I said to him,
Why is
"Maybe,
that?
well, because I think the craft will change. I mean, you'll still need people to make creative decisions." But I got into the business because I wanted to travel, go to locations, be in the morning in the desert, set up a camera, wait for the sun to rise, get up a horse galloping across, kicking up dust in silhouette. You'd get there in the dark, set up in the dark, have your coffee, be cold, and and be somewhere in Africa or in Thailand, or that's gonna
The
be
adventure.
over. I know, but that's going to be somebody still has to pick the desert, the sand, the horse. Give me a black and white dotted horse. Now get rid of it, and pick the sky. I mean, somebody's still making the creative decisions, but so that I told him maybe director, producer, that they'll still be around. Creative people will still, communicators will still be necessary. Um,
But you
but
think you think the craft of cinematography might really suffer from
Well,
AI in
for
filmmaking?
not overall, there'll still be filmmakers and individuals that will make movies the way we know, and they'll insist on. Yeah, I mean, just like people are still shooting on film and shooting on 16 millimeter, and they'll still be going out there. But in terms of the industry and the overall production, I think VFX people are
Yeah.
in trouble. It's going to eliminate a lot of positions that we still have and are accustomed to having um, on set, and yeah. So, but cinematography also. I mean, I come from a time where nobody really knew what we were doing. I started very young because I didn't go to film school. I started I was like looked like a child, and people came, "What are you doing with this viewing glass?" And you were the guy with the light meter. You wouldn't see the dailies till 2 days later, and you were the only one who was talking to the lab and going like printed these printer lights, and you would have to explain people, "Well, this is going to kind of be playing in silhouette, and these windows are going to almost be blown out," and already going digital, like everyone can walk up to the monitor and express an opinion. You can have any producer come. Not in our case, they don't come, but and I'm also lucky because I actually think it's a useful tool to have an image on set where I can discuss with the director, do you like it this moody? Should
Yeah.
we, not wait till dailies and have him like play it safer? I think you can take more chances, be riskier, and really push sort of where the direction you want to be going with. Um, but a lot of filmmakers that aren't as established, like or in television or in different formats, they can have people come up to them and go like, make it darker, make it brighter, uh, so. Um, but we were like the respect that we had as cinematographers because everyone had an opinion about how to write. They could tell the screenwriter like what to cut. The editing, everyone could walk up and criticize and edit, but nobody really could figure out exactly what we were doing on set. So we had this mystique, this sort of we were kind of magicians, and I think actually now that I said magicians, I've said that before in a separate article only about this. That this magic has been lost a little bit, like the personal
Mm.
deals with the photochemical process and skip bleach and ENR and filters and D's and depth of field, and it was kind of like it was too much for a producer to really be able to interfere. They just didn't, you know. Um, so yeah, I'm a little bit worried that that will for cinematographers, they'll live in a different world for sure, but a lot of them, and the most important thing is find a director, find a filmmaker, find a partner that wants to make the same kind of movies you do. A lot of it is just about taste. You can tell any story 100 different ways, and find a good collaborator and go out and make movies the way you want to make them. Hopefully, somebody will still pay for it.
That's good advice and a great way to end our conversation. Thank you so much, Phedon, for coming back on the show. Of course, the film is called A Complete Unknown. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it yet, you've got to go check it out. And if you have, go see it again because it's always better the second time, especially now that you have some insight into how it was filmed. Thanks so much for joining us,
Well,
Phedon. We
thank you
really
very much for
appreciate it.
having me. I hope it won't be too long till we get to sit down again, and we'll see where the technology is at that point in a
Yes, you
couple
got
of.
to come back for your next film.
All right. Thanks so much.